A checklist for large global organizations. My name is Tony Byrne, and I'll be happy to be leading you through a very fast-paced half hour today. If you are tweeting about this at all, you can use the hashtag RSG Webinar. My handle is @TonyByrne or @RealStoryGroup. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to use the Questions tab in your control panel, your GoToWebinar control panel. You can ask any questions at any time, and we'll pause probably in the middle and at the end to try to address some of them. So don't be shy. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to chime in, and we'll be sure to answer. So I'm really excited about this particular topic. We work at Real Story Group with 16 of the top Fortune 20 firms, and their needs around digital workplace, and I think for those of you who work at large enterprises, your needs around digital workplace can be quite different than a small and mid-sized organization. One of the points we'll keep referring to here is that a large enterprise crosses a lot of boundaries in terms of complexity that make it a qualitatively different problem of addressing digital workplace than a small organization that's just maybe in one country or has less than 1,000 employees. So based on our experience, we're coming up with a kind of a checklist that we use to help our subscribers, and I'll share it with you at a high level today, and then we can kind of continue the conversation from there. So our agenda is we'll have a brief introduction and discussion, and including talking about all the different sorts of technologies that are available to you. Then we'll get right into the 5-point checklist. So the points here really are usage at scale and avoiding what we call the enterprise surprise, geographies of scale, how to deal with an international or global footprint, functional scale, which is, I think, maybe one of the most important, maybe even one of the most decisive issues that we see in large enterprises, knowledge at scale, and then access at scale, particularly with respect to advanced mobile support. And then we'll close out with some concluding thoughts. So brief intro to Real Story Group. Many of you know us, some of you don't. We're a technology research and advisory firm. What we want to do is help you engage effectively with employees in your digital workplace, as well as engage effectively with your customers in terms of your external digital engagement. We're passionately vendor neutral. We work completely, solely on behalf of technology users and buyers. This is a completely unique model in the analyst world. We never advise or consult with vendors. We work totally for you on your side of the table, and that allows us to be unusually candid in our judgments, and hopefully you'll notice that today. 14, coming up soon, 15 years doing this. We've worked with 3,000 enterprises and 60 different countries who have subscribed to our research. These are some of the technologies we cover, and you can see by just scanning through this little list of subway stations here that a number of these technologies are, of course, germane in the digital workplace. So if you're a subscriber, what you get access to is research, where we evaluate the weaknesses and strengths of the tool, and advisory services, where we help you with your technology strategies and certainly your roadmaps, including roadmaps around digital workplace, and then finally product and vendor selection. So I mentioned these tube stops or these subway stops. This is our latest vendor map that you can download from our website. I'm going to use this as sort of an introduction into the conversation today, which is that across all these different technologies, and each different technology is represented by a particular line on this metro here, this digital workplace and marketing technology metro map. For each one of these, you see there's kind of a center with a number of big name vendors, and then a kind of a periphery with a number of smaller players. And as you can imagine, a lot of the innovation is happening around the periphery. And one of the things that we constantly hear is that, well, if I'm going to do this at scale, I need to align with one of these, major vendors here. And the reality is, though, that when we start looking at scale, sometimes, in fact, what you need is more combinations of tools. That you need to incorporate some of the smaller vendors for some of the specialized capabilities that they offer. So A critical skill in any large enterprise is your ability to integrate multiple tools. It's really more the smaller SMB type businesses that have the luxury of just going with a single vendor for some of these digital workplace capabilities. So great question from Tim already. He's asking, will we be sending out the presentation? The answer is yes. You'll all receive a copy of the presentation, and those of you who are Real Story Group subscribers, you'll also have access to a recorded video of this, or video and audio of this, so you'll have streaming media of this particular presentation itself, so you'll have access to a full recording if you are a Real Story Group subscriber. Everyone else, you'll just get a copy of the deck. Okay, so let's get into it. 5-point checklist for large organizations. So the first one is you want to avoid what we call the enterprise surprise. And there's a lot of surprises that can happen, but this is really the surprise that we see, that when you pilot or prototype, particularly a social collaboration solution, but really any digital workplace tool, portals, document management, what have you, when you pilot it at the departmental level, things may work very well, but then when you try to roll it out across a large enterprise, that's often when you run into the enterprise surprise. And some of this may be that the pilot that you selected wasn't necessarily representative. We see a lot of problems with the actual technology itself, where the vendor just assumes that the enterprise is a supersized department. Like, okay, it worked in 1 hamburger patty here, so now if we do it in 6 hamburger patties, of course it's still going to work. And the reality is that the enterprise is not really a supersized department. The enterprise brings a lot of heterogeneous needs and demands, a lot of different functional groups, of course global diversity, and so what happens is you very often, going from departmental to enterprise, you run into different surprises. On the technology side, we see this very commonly, and what's interesting here is that very often big vendors are not necessarily your friend here. There's a number of key capabilities from an administrative and system services perspective that you really need to take into consideration, which may not have presented themselves in a departmental level implementation, but once you get to the enterprise, these things start becoming very important around things like multi-instance management, backup and restoration, reliability, reporting and analytics, lifecycle management. These are the sorts of things that the enterprise cares about and can be make or break that, again, may not have surfaced during the departmental one. I'll notice in particular UI internationalization, which is a big issue for many of the smaller vendors in particular, where they may work in one country. Usually they've been designed to work, say, in the United States. They have English-only interfaces. They may support other content, including potentially other non-Latin character sets, but in terms of the labels and the way the software works, it hasn't actually been localized in other languages, and so you try to roll this out across the globe, and that can immediately become an issue. So that's one enterprise surprise. The other one that we see quite often, including with big vendors, is surprises around access control, that the access control model doesn't really scale. So I'll give you an example of this. This is a screenshot from IBM Connections, but it's very common in other places, where I'm trying to create a new community, and it's asking me, well, tell me about the access model for this community. It's going to be public access, where anyone can join, public access where users request to join, or is it going to be completely private? And then I can actually type in here a list of members that I want to join in this community. So this works really well if I'm just in a single office location, or I'm just in a single country or a single business unit, because chances are I may know the different members that I want to add, and so I just add them all individually. Where this doesn't scale is when there's dynamism in the organization, people coming and going, people leaving, and where you really want to tie this into your identity and access management, like roles and groups. And it's surprising to me just how many of these systems, and we go into this in some detail in our research, actually don't support enterprise roles and groups. And this is really a problem, because if you want to set up a community of practice, say, around executive leadership, and that across your organization only executives, people who've been designated at the executive level, can attend, then someone needs to manually enter and track who all is an executive. If somebody leaves the organization or someone's promoted, you have to manually add them in, as opposed to tying into Active Directory or some other source of information that has a definitive list of executives. This is a great example of where something that works well at a departmental level, and where the vendor had really conceived this, of this working in a world where kind of everybody already knew each other, everybody maybe even be working together, where that may work at that level, but then once you try to extend it across the enterprise, literally just falls over.